Welcome to another episode of Canadian Awareness Podcast. Dear audience members, dear Canadian Awareness family. My name is Anthony. I'm an extra dimensional channeler here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and a person behind this podcast. And tonight I have a very special individual that comes to us all the way from Dubai. He's not born in Dubai. He's born in Italy, and he also lived in London, but he works and operates his business and his practice out of Dubai. And both of the times I've had a pleasure to go to Dubai in 2018 and 2022. This individual I certainly missed. But tonight, universe works in funny ways. Here we are tonight speaking. I do find his education in the spiritual world, of course, very, very interesting. Very clever speaker, certainly, and he has a lot of different wise advice to give. The guest tonight is Gian Carlo, and he's a person behind a business or behind a practice called Tree of Life Shamanic Healing. And this is a practice, this is a individual that offers a variety of different courses, and in my translation I would use the terminology of growing outward, becoming much more connected and involving, which truly is the whole point of our incarnation, is to evolve, not to just maintain. This individual has a tremendous amount of courses. It's just a long list of courses that he offers on shamanic practices and shamanic living, on shamanism, but also on a holistic lifestyle, manifestation, grounding, a variety of different things. So tonight I'm going to bring this individual into the studio. We're going to ask him a lot of different questions. I have some questions from the audience. I do have some questions from my own self personally, particularly about his family, about his background, and what got him really into this industry. Without any further delays, I bring into the studio Gian Carlo, speaking to us live from Dubai. And now we are live with Gian Carlo, all the way from Dubai. I had a pleasure to go to Dubai twice, 2018, 2022. Unfortunately, I did not have a chance to meet this gentleman, but universe works funny. And here we are today. We are meant to speak, and it's my honor to have this gentleman on the show. Gian Carlo, how are you today?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Anthony. It's an honor to be here. And it's an honor to, let's say, be part of this great family of authentic, let's say, light workers, okay? Responsible light workers. Let's put it this way.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You've proven to be just that. I've had a chance to, and not just yesterday or today, but for a while now, look at your YouTube, look at your Facebook, look at your seminars, look at your life coaching, look at all the wonderful things you're doing for Reiki as well as shamanism. And I got a lot of questions for you. Some are from my audience, female members, who think you're very, very cute, by the way. And also some of the questions are for me. So if you don't mind, I'd like to first and foremost ask you a question. You are not from Dubai, born and raised. You lived there and you worked there. You're originally from Italy. So what made you go from Italy to Dubai? That's a very large distance, regionally speaking. And why did you choose Dubai of all places?
Well, let's say that my story is quite more longer because let's say that originally I was born in England. I was born in London, okay? And I was raised until a certain moment of my life in the eastern suburb of London, okay? And at the age of 18, I moved to Italy with my dad, my mum. I'm the only child, okay? So I moved on to Italy. And from there, let's say that I enrolled myself in the military, and I stayed there for quite a whole load of years of my life. And then from there, I decided to go fully fledged holistic mode, on my spiritual mode, fully fledged from there. Because let's say that it's always been in my DNA to be connected in a certain way spiritually, in a very, very deep and authentic way. For an example, from my family background, my dad was a very particular person. He had let's say he had a certain sensitivity that he very rarely shared, but he shared it with me and my mom, for an example. And he used to see things. He had an interaction with a light being that for him looked like the Archangel Michael, for an example, and he shared it to me. And he said that once it came into his restaurant when it was closing at a very late hour, okay? And it's a very particular story. And from my mom's side, let's say that my uncle was a shaman, and it's a family thing, okay? And I remember that I was initiated at the age of 13, and life took a certain direction, of course. But since my childhood, I was born with what I personally like to call, let's say, in a quite an intricate way, holographical multidimensional awareness, okay? And let's say that it did cause some, let's say, disturbances, some sort of issue at the initial stage of my life when I used to go to school, when I was in kindergarten. Because when you are born in a certain way and you don't know how to attune yourself, you have the tendency to, let's say, lose the perception of, let's say, of the awareness of your three-dimensional reality, how to navigate on the human plane of reality, okay? How to, let's say, make the abstract, which is the multi-dimensional level of reality, be more down to ground in a way that it works for you on the human level, okay, to make you more aware of yourself in the utmost authentic way as an empowered human being, because this is what Mother Earth needs: empowered human beings, inspired human beings, and not human beings just roaming around in the abstract, not taking responsibility of their own issues, hiding in the abstract where there are the rainbows, the unicorns, and the fluffy angels and stuff. But, being a human being means, you really have to walk in your shadow, okay, and down to ground yourself, be assertive, and that exalts the best part of you, the light version, okay, the utmost inspired version. But, in those days, I was just seeing different realities overlapping in between themselves, like the old negatives of photographs in one on top of another. I used to walk down the road, I used to see buildings with very strange architecture that weren't really visible with the naked eye for other people. They were just appearing from nowhere, towering over the clouds. We are very trafficked indeed. The sky, people see the sky, they just see the clouds, the cloud formations. They see an airplane passing by. But believe me, when you have this vision anchored up there in the sky, there are so many things. Huge starships, as big as cities, just there, anchored there. And who knows what the hell they're doing up there, you understand? And beings just coming up from nowhere and interacting with me. So I was in this constant state since my childhood. And I had issues of being more aware I had issues of leaving the awareness of my human density. It was too much on the abstract, okay? I was too taken away. So this has caused me, of course, certain issues at school as well with psychologists. When children in a drawing class, for an example, when children were invited to simply draw a line and a circle for the basic standards of how to start to draw things on a piece of paper, I was already into sacred geometry. I was already practically drawing the energy waves of the superstrings of the universe. And the teachers were just there, and instead of being baffled or curious, they were quite pissed with me. I was practically somehow challenging them in a certain way, and they saw me as some sort of enemy to pinpoint, to annihilate, you understand? And that was my childhood. And of course, all the rest of the class was against me. So, the bullying as well and all the rest. So that was my childhood. So God knows how I came out of this, and God knows how, or let's say gods and goddesses knows how, metaphorically saying, how I became how I am now, as an assertive person who is totally convinced of his capabilities, because it's a leap of faith, really. But the soul has many mysteries, and the soul way before you're born, of course, okay. And I had to go through this alchemical process, okay, to learn to understand that you should never be a victim of your fear. Never permit fear created by a malevolent society to hunt you down, but be the hunter of your fear. Hunt it down, master it, and make it become your inner strength. And this is when the shadow dances with the light, and this is when you pull out your authentic self without shame. And it's simply being truthful to yourself in a fearless way, without fear, because fear is practically seen in a very distorted way. We have to hunt it down, face it, master it, and now we become the riders of our personal dragon. Or we become a wolf hunting in the forest of our subconscious rather than a rabbit in the hole, waiting to be the victim of our fear. Or a sheep ready to be directed wherever it has to be directed in this sort of malevolent society, which is, of course, of human construct.
Absolutely wonderful, empowering words. I do agree with you. Fear is an illusion, it's cancer, it's toxic. I have no respect for it and or people that harvest it. Thank you for sharing that. So in Dubai that you are now, I understand that's not your permanent residence. You don't reside there full time. You go back and forth. So why did you choose Dubai to be your work location with people that you work there? Why Dubai? Why not some other cities in the world?
Well, strange really, because before the lockdown, I was going to USA. I used to work in New York. I used to go to the Quad cities near Chicago as well, and work in Chicago before the lockdown. And I was starting to get myself known in those parts, because of course many people don't know me very well yet. But then the lockdown occurred, and the only place that remained open was Dubai. I've been working in Dubai for many years, and somehow it's been some sort of calling, okay? Most probably it must be something to do with epigenetics. It must be something to do with an ancestral calling. It must be something to do with past lives, for an example, okay? And all I can say is that when we're talking about the calling of the calling of the soul is always somehow, let's say, related even to past lives. It's like you have to go back to a place where a certain episode of your life is still open to then somehow close the circle and then move on and transform this circle into a spiral, an evolutive spiral of the consciousness. And all I can say that let's talk about, let's say, um, now we're talking about the Knights Templars, okay? The Knights Templars. Now, it's quite a long argument, okay? And when I look at the history of my soul, this is a very strong part of me, okay? And we're not talking about the Crusaders, because the Crusaders were totally a different thing. They were more driven by the Catholic religion. But when we are talking about Templars, they were driven by another purpose, okay? A unifying purpose. They went into the Middle East. They knew what they were looking for. It was an archaeological mission. They found it under the Temple of Solomon. And what they found were, let's say, secrets that can be very uncomfortable for society until nowadays. Most probably they found out antique scriptures related to the origins of humanity, okay, which isn't much related to what the Roman Catholic Church teaches, of course, okay? So uh, let's say that coming back to the Middle East, it's as if that it's some sort of unifying mission, because when we talk about culture, okay, and when we talk about religion, how is it perceived by men? It's man-made, okay? And there's lots of political power behind all of this. And when there's political power, there is separation of the population, there is separation of the nations. And with this sense of separation, there is a lack of trust in one another, okay? And a cultural clash occurs, but this cultural clash is driven by a very distorted vision of spirituality, which is called religion, which is mainly politically driven. And this is practically the strive, the negative strive of power, okay, that comes from a very deep and rooted narcissistic nature of humanity, a part of humanity that hasn't been resolved. So when we are going back to the mission of the Knights Templars, in secrecy, they were practically in collaboration with the other spiritual factions, not the religious factions, but the spiritual factions like the Sufis, the assassins of Mount Hatim, for an example, okay? And of course, the mission was to abolish all the religious concepts powered by the political concept and to raise and to anticipate the raising of the vibrational frequency of humanity under a unifying concept of, let's say, a spiritual vision, where all was accepted, where all is possible, but at the same time, this acceptance reaches a certain balance, okay, in the minds and the hearts of humanity, where this balance, of course, is peace, global peace, okay? Because at the end of the day, we all come from the same place, but that same place, that same divine law, which I like to call divine singularity, has infinite interpretations. But at the end of the day, we all have to go back to this concept of divine singularity. And this is the unifying concept. This is a key to bring peace in the hearts of humanity. And let's say to raise humanity from its, let's say, malevolent nature of separation, of striving for power and overpowering his own next door neighbor, only because he has different concepts, okay? And this has been going on throughout history, throughout so many centuries and millennia, okay? So when I'm talking about why I'm here in Dubai, I'm just here as a spiritual man. I'm here practically to understand that we are all born from divine singularity as souls. And in this concept, it is time to open our hearts and our minds to go beyond certain boundaries and to create, let's say, a new concept that can really give humanity the chance to find an authentic state of peace, which is not based upon compromission anymore, okay? But the real peace, which is simply based on being in a collective nature, simply being in a collective nature.
Interesting. That has to be the longest answer I've ever got when I ask somebody, why did you move to a certain city? But it's a detailed answer, and I can just see the passion behind it. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned a few things in that statement. I want to ask you about the few things, particularly in relation to the souls, in relation to shadow work, in relation to the work that you do. But one of the things I do desire to ask you first is, I understand you are a founder of what's called Transcendental Quantum Reiki. So if you were to, I'll put it this way so that we can make this fun. If you were in an elevator stuck with a group of humans and you're going, in Dubai, there's all these large towers, of course. Let's say you're in Burj Al Khalifa, lasts a couple of minutes to ride, and someone says to you, okay, Gian Carlo, it's your time to talk. How would you summarize what is Transcendental Quantum Reiki in, let's say, couple of minutes, so that all of these people in the elevator are able to get the most important points before they get off, and hopefully they sign up for some of your courses. So tell me, what is it?
Wow. Well, I would look for the shaft upstairs, climb on top of the shaft and cut the elevator string, and the elevator will fall at a high speed. And this is Transcendental Quantum Reiki. It is an impact. Okay. Well, jokes apart, Transcendental Quantum Reiki, in a very short sentence. Well, let's say that we are living a very important transitional period, okay? I believe that we are already transitioning through the fifth density, because when we're talking about 3D, this is the elusive perspective of our reality, okay, of our material reality. This is how our naked eye sees in 3D. It's an elusive holographical interpretation of what our universe is made of, what we perceive, how we perceive ourselves in our universe as carbon-based beings, which is light, sound, time, and space, four-dimensional forces, okay? So now we are starting to shift in the fifth density, okay? And the DNA is changing, and we are going towards the crystalline-based DNA structure. A new strand is coming out. New instructions are coming from the cosmos, okay? And this has started since the galactic alignment, since 2012, okay? Where the Great Galactic Alignment, I like to call it even, it's also known as, I personally like to call it the Great Cosmic Filter, okay? Even science is talking about the Great Cosmic Filter. There are millions and millions of species and races, emerging races, okay, in the same condition of humanity that are going through this alignment. So many star sectors, because the galaxy is so full of so many species going through this alignment, which is the Great Filter. But what is the Great Filter? It is an energy coming from the center of the galaxy. It is gravity waves, pulsating gravity waves, bringing energies from other dimensional realities, okay? It is a great mystery indeed. It goes beyond human comprehension, but through these concentrical waves, information is traveling, okay? And of course, this information which is traveling is having a certain effect on our solar system. It's having an effect on our sun. The sun has changed its energetical configuration. It is irradiating the earth in a different way. This energy is passing through the soil of the earth. It is changing the electromagnetic configuration of the heart of the earth. Now the torus field, the energy field of the earth has changed, especially its first layer, which is the layer of the planetary consciousness called the Schumann resonance, okay? And now humanity is facing a huge choice, the great filter, whether to thrive on a higher level of consciousness or whether to disappear and be reprocessed, energetically reprocessed, okay? Because nothing dies in reality. Death is just a human construct, okay? We can practically, when a species disappears or extinguishes itself, it is an energetical reprocessing to create new life form, okay? So we are practically living a crossroads, whether to thrive and evolve on a higher level as a human species, where we have gone through the cosmic galactic filter and we are thriving on a new level of awareness, okay? Or whether we are destined to be reprocessed energetically. Well, this great filter is also known to be, let's say, the cleansing energy of the cosmos. It's a sterilizing energy, okay, that cleanses away all the old energy waves. There is no hiding in the wardrobes anymore. We can't hide our skeletons in the wardrobes anymore. And it is also known to be the energy of revelations, okay? So we are revealing ourselves for who we truly are in our true nature, in the darkness and the light. And we have to take responsibility on our darkness to empower ourselves in the light, of course, okay? And this is the energy of, which is metaphorically called or archetypically called the energy of the Archangel Metatron, which I like to call the Metatronic energy, okay? This is the great cosmic selector. There are races that can make it and races that cannot make it, of course, and they have to be reprocessed. And it's a reset, okay? It's a cosmic reset. But as I said, in this transitional moment, new methods are arriving to help us to go through this transitional moment. And one method that has arrived from, let's say, the collective consciousness or the collective energy of the Metatron is Transcendental Quantum Reiki, okay? I like to call it Transcendental Quantum Reiki. Initially it was called Transcendental Quantum Healing, but now I've put the name Reiki on it because in the past I've had Reiki practitioners coming in to do this course, and they have noticed that their capabilities have been furtherly more amplified. And they told me, why don't you put the name Reiki on it? But I thought, no, it's not the case. I don't want to put the name Reiki on it because it shouldn't be categorized. But then through certain experiences that I had, then I decided to put the name Reiki to it, even if it's quite different, because the spiritual guides that have sent me this modality, okay, and I'm going to talk about this, um, they clearly told me, don't worry to call it whatever you want. You can even put the name Reiki, but even if it's quite different, everything changes in time. Okay, everything changes in time. Nothing is different. Nothing is the same as it was in the past. While living in a time of transition, so just trust your intuitions and call it whatever you want. But the most important thing is, let's say, delivering it out there to people, so as many people can get it, and as many people, because it is a reawakening modality, okay, and it is mainly based upon sacred geometry that reflects the multidimensional nature of ourselves. So it is the reawakening of that multidimensional aspect of our soul, which is called the Merkaba, or vehicle of light, which is, let's say, our hyperspatial nature. Once we reignite that part of ourselves that was lost since the times of Atlantis, but now it's coming back, then we are ready to propel ourselves in a harmonious way through this transitional moment, which seems to be a moment of turmoil. Okay, so let's say that it is a leap of faith within ourselves. It is a leap of faith to trust ourselves as human beings, knowing that we are capable to evolve into higher beings. Okay, and this method, of course, helps us to harness the Metatron energy that then reconnects us as living portals directly to the source, which I like to call divine singularity. And I remember when I received this method, okay, it was years ago, and I received it from a race called the Arcturian Whites. And they also resonate on the ultraviolet spectrum. They resonate on this type of energy. They call themselves also the guardians of the portal. I've had these beings following me since my childhood, but at a certain moment, I met them near my home. And it was about 10 years ago this occurred, I remember. I used to live in a very isolated house on top of the hill in the north of Italy. There was only one road to reach it, and there was no more houses around. Very isolated indeed. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up. I went down, I took the dog for a walk because I had a small Scottish Cairn Terrier, very lively. And I had to go to the field nearby. I felt drawn to go to the field nearby. And there they were. I clearly saw this sort of vehicle, very difficult to describe because it was like a fractalical sort of vehicle. It was in constant movement, like this, all fractalical, multidimensional, okay? You can only see these vehicles partially with your three-dimensional mind, but there is much, much more to it, okay? And I saw these very tall, elegant-looking beings with bright white ultraviolet light and all sorts of colors roaming around within them. Very tall, elegant in their movements. There were 5. The dog practically wasn't barking. The dog was standing still like a statue, practically, as if it was hypnotized. I looked at the dog, are you okay? No hypnotized, okay? It was as if that time stopped. And one of them just came forward and sent me a beam of light from its forehead right to my forehead. These beings have no eyes, no nose, no mouth, okay? They're just light figures, okay? And from this type of transmission, a series of all sorts of formulas and sacred geometries started to arrive, all in rapid succession. Now, permit myself to say that these beings have a way of communication that is incredible, really incredible. It's a telepathical means of communication, but on a very high multidimensional level, in just one fraction of a second, which for them is a normal conversation. In just one fraction of a second, the whole entire history and information of the galaxy has passed, okay? In one fraction of a second, boom, they have transmitted information that corresponds to the whole entire history of the galaxy. And for them, this is just a hello, for an example, okay? And they cannot communicate on this level with our human brain because the human brain will just shut down. It's paralysis, total paralysis, okay? Shut down. The nervous system will go into total, it is the failure of the nervous system, okay? So they communicate in rapid successions in terms of sacred geometry, but it all goes to the subconscious. The rational mind does not comprehend. It bypasses the rational, it goes straight to the subconscious. The communication is over and they just go away, and the dog revives itself. And I thought, that's very interesting. And I just went back to bed. Anyway, a day passes, another day passes. I try to figure out, and when you try to figure out, the ego hijackers the process of comprehending on a deeper level if you try to figure out, because you're trying to figure out with the mind. Until I totally forgot the experience. When you forget, the ego isn't there anymore. No more expectations, no more figuring out. Suddenly the information came out. And then I started to formulate and to develop this modality made of 4 levels called Transcendental Quantum Reiki.
It's a very interesting story. I definitely am very amazed by it. Thank you for sharing it. And I know with real, authentic contactees, it's very difficult for them to express these stories, to share their personal stories that are just not meant for this density and that are multidimensional in nature. Most contactees I know on a personal level that are friends, that I trust, that are verified, that trust me, they've never shared their story. In fact, I've only shared one story of meeting a Yael being in my bedroom. The rest I've never really gotten into, to be honest, and I don't think I will, but I do admire you for sharing that. I have to ask you, since 10 years ago till today, how often do you communicate with these beings now? In which way, or how do you, or what is the activity between the groups or representative of this race or their council with you in your life?
It's not that I really set the intent to communicate with them. It's as if that there's a constant open channel. And when I feel like it, it's like an on and off button. Okay, they come and communicate. Now I have to admit that it's been a while, okay, that there isn't that type of direct interaction, okay. But when I feel the necessity to communicate, feelings, sensations arrive, because it's a quantum level of communication. It's a gut feeling, and you feel it from within, and the mind starts to elaborate, okay. And the third eye acts like some sort of 3-dimensional projector, okay, holographical 3-dimensional projector that elaborates the message that arrives in a human and comprehensible way, okay. So this is how I put it. So it's not that I just sit down, set the intent, I take a few deep breaths, I close my eyes, and now here I am here. No, it doesn't really work that way. It's simply a simple way of being in your everyday life, where you are constantly in a state of communication, and you choose when you feel necessary to communicate, to receive something. Sometimes they have something to tell you, and okay, they come in, but it's mainly your choice, okay? Because it's all a question of respecting the free will of a human being. Because us human beings, we receive certain information. They are like access keys, okay? Keys that grants us access to certain areas of ourselves. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about channeling, okay, it's a constant way of being in an authentic way. This is what they teach us, okay? And when you are constantly being in your authenticity, you're constantly communicating, you're constantly connected like a radio which is constantly attuned. And if you want to pay attention, you get the information. If you don't want to pay attention, it doesn't really matter. You're more focused on your human density. But at the end of the day, the invitation is that we should take responsibility as human beings, okay? So they send us information, and these are access keys, but then it's up to us what to do. But the utmost important thing is what we receive teaches us to leave us in an awareness where we have to learn to develop and to deliver the best versions of ourselves. The best versions of ourselves. And this is evolution. We are here to evolve here on Earth as human beings and not become aliens on Earth.
Thank you very much for that. And I noticed that in some of your seminars that you teach in your courses, and I've looked at all the pictures, your advertisements. I went through your whole Facebook. I went through your social media, your Instagram, which we'll get into social media a little later of yours. And I noticed you always play this extremely interesting instrument, a very long, what I would describe in a very basic English, a long flute made out of wood with a variety of different symbols on it, including a very interesting reptile or a gecko. So the two questions I would have is, first of all, what is the name of that instrument? Secondly, and how did you learn to play that particular instrument?
Well, the instrument, the Westerners like to call it didgeridoo, okay, for the sound, didgeridoo, didgeridoo. And usually, unfortunately, many Westerners don't understand the real meaning of the didgeridoo, what it really does, okay? Its real name is Idaki. It's all called Idaki in certain areas of Australia, or Gunmar as well, okay? I lived with the Aborigines of Australia for a few years. I interacted with them many times and they accepted me. I was with my ex-wife in those times and they accepted us as members of the tribe, of their tribe. I'm talking about the tribe of the Northern Territory, in an area of Australia called Wangu, and they are called the Jungans, okay? And they are originated in an area called Mount Mulligan, which they call Mount Narrabulgan, which is in, let's say, this area called Wangu. And it is a very powerful and sacred mountain, okay? And each time that I used to go to this place, because we were accepted, of course, there was the chief of the tribe. His name was the same name as the mountain, okay? Narrabulgan, Great Mountain, okay? And he was quite an imposing figure as well, of course. He practically accepted us as his spiritual children, okay? Spiritual children, like a brother and a child, okay? And of course we were initiated by him as well, going to this mountain. And what I really felt, I remember the first time that I went there, I used to share all my feelings, all my sensations. Oh, I'm feeling a sensation here. I'm starting to receive information there. You know, sometimes the ego kicked in. And the only thing that he said was, he looked at me and he said, "Gian, yes, shut up. You talk too much. Stay quiet, okay? Because, you know, we have to understand the importance of silence, okay? When we are living our spiritual experience." Anyway, I clearly felt it as some sort of dormant starship in the astral, okay? And I could clearly see so many beings on top of that mountain in a row, just observing us as if that they were guarding the place, okay? They were guarding the place. And it really felt as if that you were in the presence of some sort of dormant starship, okay? And I have a very personal theory as well, okay? It sounds a bit wacko, okay? But when we see the landscape planet, we don't really understand totally the history of the landscape of our planet. We just see it in geological terms. But on planet Earth, there have been many, many civilizations. Humanity has thrived in many ways, even highly advanced ways. Lost civilizations. We had many visitors as well that have created civilizations here on Earth. So when we look at the landscape and we see the mountains, for an example, these structures can be the results of years and years and years of calcification through the geological natural process of Earth, the atmosphere as well. Years and years of calcification and so through atmospherical reasons as well, and erosions of highly advanced structures, okay, that most probably can be the remnants of ancient starships and highly advanced buildings. Who knows? It's my personal theory.
I don't think it's wacko. I do align with what you're saying. I've had a pleasure, and I'll just mention it quickly, to tap into fourth density, and while working in and living in the three-dimensional world on some travels that I've done. And certainly, particularly as one example in Giza, Egypt, what I saw was just astonishing, and it was the fourth density version of these structures that were not built by ancient Egypt, nor were the pyramids made 5,000 years ago. But you are right, I can certainly relate. And when I try to explain to sometimes somebody, they say, well, you know, that's impossible. We would see it, our scientists would see it. Or I'm like, okay, if you're gonna pull that line, our scientists would see it, Google will see it. You and I, we're just terminating this conversation. We're not on the same page, and I don't have the patience to deal with you. But I definitely, very definitely resonate with exactly what you're just saying. You know, it's unfortunate too that we are constantly lied to by our revised educational systems, by our edited schools, man-made religions, controlling religions truly, and just lying governments that who we truly are as humans and what is our ancient history, who are our ancestors, the power we have within us. It's very unfortunate. It was like a big pill for me to swallow personally when I got into trance channeling. Before channeling, I think I was a very spiritual guy, but I never understood, you know, dimensions and densities and different species and realities, and we live in a reality and personal perspective. But thank you for sharing that. I wish to ask you this. You bring it up often. You talk about soul, you talk about shadow work. So I wish to ask you a two-part question. Tell us, in your perspective, in your words, what is a soul? And also, too, in your words, what is shadow work?
Well, you see, the soul, you know, if you observe your hand, for an example, okay, and you discover that in your hand, you magnify it and you're scaling yourself down into your hand, and the lines become canyons, and then from the canyons you go into the bloodstream and you see the blood cells, and then into the blood cell you go to the nucleus, you see the mitochondrial system, and then the DNA, and beyond the DNA you see the molecules, and beyond the molecules you see the atoms, and then beyond the atoms you see the heart of the atoms, okay, the quantum, and from there the whole entire universe expands again. You understand? You know, the concept of being the infinite and closed in infinite spaces over and over again, that makes us this singularity, this divine singularity. Well, the soul, explaining the soul is far beyond human comprehension. We can't even estimate how powerful and how huge and infinite the soul is, okay, in its perspective of spiritual enlightenment, enlightened by the spirit. But all I can say is that as we live in the universe, the cosmos, in its infinite scale, its infinite greatness, in all its countless dimensions, okay, the universe, the multiverse, the oververse, it is all the reflection of who we are within. We are the embodiment of all of this. And this is the soul. This is the soul. Okay? So we should stop thinking about the soul as some sort of helpless being enclosed in a human body, waiting for judgment day, hoping that it has been a good soul. And if it has been a good soul, there's water and bread up in heaven, and we are all going to be bored for all of eternity, drinking water and bread and praising whatsoever. Or if I've been a bad soul, I'm going to be a barbecue with barbecue sauce in hell, and the devils are like cowboys making a barbecue out of me. You understand? We should snap out of this. We should start to understand the infinite greatness within, spiritual enlightenment that makes us who we are as the embodiment of the infinite itself. And this is the soul. This is the soul. It is far beyond our physicality. It is, let's say, field consciousness on multidimensional and over-dimensional level. This is the soul, field consciousness. And we are the personification, each one of us as human beings, but not only as human beings, from the infinitely great, like the galaxies, to the stars, to the planets, to the minerals, to all aspects of nature, to the to the oceans, the clouds, the animals, to the cells, to the atoms. But of course, even talking about us, we are all the personification, or um, or a tiny algorithmical equation of all of this that I have described, which is soul, living multiple, infinite realities. So it is field consciousness. This is the soul for me.
And shadow work, how would you describe that? You talk about it often in your
Yes,
statements.
shadow work. Well, we're talking about assertive training as well, okay? Because, when I talk about shadow work, I consider it as a very important aspect of ourselves, because this is the part that grounds us, that opens our eyes to make us understand how to deliver the best part of ourselves without permitting the malevolent society to take advantage of our goodness, but knowing that, okay, people know that we are good-hearted, but behind the smile, there is always the shadow part that demonstrates that we have the teeth of a wolf as well, you understand? So it's a question of balance. It's a question of balance. It's a question of being good, but not being nice, you understand? It's a question of being good, but not taking crap, you understand? It's a question of honoring yourself. It's a question of speaking out yourself and let's say delivering the best part of yourself, but in an assertive way. So it's a question of defending your integrity. So it is that warrior part of ourselves that is, let's say, faced, accepted, and tamed, in a way to be the guardian of our light self and to exalt our light self in the utmost and healthiest of all ways. So it brings the balance, okay? It brings the balance. So I firmly believe that the shadow and the light, they should dance together, okay? And they should dance together in total acceptance without fear. We should not be afraid, okay? There are so many people out there, I am in the light and I despise the shadow, but they cannot get along with their lives. And they keep blaming society for a very unhappy, miserable life. Why? Because they do not take responsibility, while the shadow self says, why is society passing over you like a tank? Because you don't take responsibility. You don't know how to exalt the power of your light, because you don't know what it truly means to be in the light. And truly meaning being in the light means even walking in your shadow. That makes you understand that there is the light side, which is your inspired part, the constructive part. We all have a beast within ourselves, okay? But many people fear that part. We always want to look for the angelical part. But if you want to really understand the angelical part, we have to understand that there is that other side that we have to walk through, embrace, tame. It's taming the inner dragon, or it's taming the inner wolf. That then helps us to be, let's say, totally truthful with ourselves without fear. And that means exalting in the end the light side, but in a functional and constructive way. Okay, so this is what shadow work for me means. We all have that part in ourselves, but we all fear that part. But, living in the awareness of being evolved human beings, because this is what the light reminds us. The light reminds us to, let's say, reminds us that we have reached a certain level of evolution with our consciousness, okay, culturally and whatsoever. We have the power even to face that part of ourselves and to make it work for us, okay, to furtherly help us thrive in a way to project the best part of ourselves in a more assertive way. So it means learning to be more assertive in life, overcoming this false moralism and this false generosity which makes us naive, okay. Now we understand what is the difference between saying yes and saying no. And simply being yourself doesn't mean that you are understood by everyone. But the most important thing is understanding yourself. It's total self-acceptance of the intricate nature of who we truly are, between the light and the darkness, the white unicorn and the dragon, and make these two work together.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a very unique combo. Absolutely. I can elaborate so much more on that, but this show is about you. So, in this long answer you just gave me, in the very first sentence, you brought up a very wonderful term, an interesting term that I think a lot of people are not using, whether it's their meditation or channeling, and that is grounding. So, I wish to ask you, in your perspective, how important is grounding? How important is grounding to a person who wishes to channel and integrate with their soul? Or how important is grounding in general when it comes to a spiritual life or meditative states? What are your perspectives on grounding and the importance of grounding?
Well, there are two ways to be grounded, okay? Or life slaps you in the face very hard and it grounds you. And this is the extreme way, you know, or you woman yourself up and you man yourself up, and this is grounding, okay? Or otherwise, you have to really, really, it's a question of time, dedication, putting your ego aside, and really understanding what it truly means to deliver a message in an understandable way, but in a way that really helps people as well, okay, in a human way. But it takes also years and lots of dedication. Channeling just doesn't occur in a night, okay? It's very important to understand our human nature first, the basic principle of our human nature, and work on our human nature from there upwards, like a tree on very deep, stable branches. Out there, I've also been part of a group, for an example, okay? And, they're just there. Take 3 deep breaths, go into a state of trance, close your eyes, and then the energy is coming, your vocal cords are changing, the energy is expanding. Now there is another presence, and here I am. Who are you? I am Pleiadian, or whatsoever. I am the higher self. The higher self, and who is the higher self? It's Arcturian. I am an Arcturian. I am the higher self. Now, the concept of higher self is source. Initially, you have to ground yourself. That then connects you to singularity. That then becomes the portal of other sections or fragments of yourselves that can be Arcturian, Pleiadian, or whatsoever. Okay? But there are many people who tend to run away in this type of abstract. We have to learn to understand how it's important to accept our humanity. To accept our humanity in its vulnerable state, to understand how to reinforce ourselves as human beings in our vulnerability, okay? Not to feel so helpless as human beings. And this means that living the awareness that we are the embodiment of divine singularity of oneness. And then from there, grounding ourselves in this state, we are prepared to channel, okay? In a reasonable way, okay? And that means even working on this level to even harness our ego, because the ego kicks in. The ego usually kicks in the ego usually kicks in when a person channels. Why? Because many people who channel, they try to run away in the abstract. It's as if that they are using the channeling as an excuse not to take responsibility on their actual issues here on earth as human beings. We have to resolve our inner misery, our personal human misery, to then exalt ourselves as inspired human beings, and then channeling becomes a natural process. And it's not a question of breathing, closing your eyes, and I am General, uh, I am General Zod of Krypton. No, it's not a question of this. It's a question of living your life in the utmost authentic way, being truthful to yourself. And you are an antenna to the universe, and the inspiration arrives, and it can arrive from the real Pleiadians, the reptilians, or the Arcturians, you understand? But it arrives from the real deals. And it's not a question of Hollywood movie, you understand? Going into this, showing people that you're capable of going into deep state of trance, and now you're channeling General Zod, you understand? This is the metaphor. So while I am speaking now, for an example, this is a channeling. Okay, so this is my personal perspective. So it's and when you ground yourself in this perspective, you live it. You live it in every single part of your life. You live it while you are talking. You live it. You're living it while you are thinking. You're living it while you are eating. You're living it while you are breathing. It is simply you in your multidimensional awareness. It's authenticity.
Appreciate that. Yes, you're definitely right. Grounding is important in my perspective. It was a game changer for me to improve in my own channeling. Absolutely. I want to ask you about a subject. I know that one of your titles, you have a few different titles. One of your titles that you are a shaman and you practice shamanic lifestyle and practices and you teach these things aside from Reiki, that you founded your own program. But talk to me about this. I want you to remove any filter you have and you can be open, and I appreciate the more deepest honesty as possible. I'm known as a person with no filters, so please give me a non-filtered answer to why is there so many fake or egomaniacs, narcissistic type of shaman experts and pros and gurus out there that have never taken the proper steps to truly live the shamanic lifestyle, do the practices, growing outward, obtaining knowledge, growing. It seems that these days they just say that as long as you move to Peru or somewhere in Chile and you do a lot of mushrooms, that's it, you are a shaman. And I've spoken with some shamans in my life, in my career. A wonderful man actually out of Quebec named True Brother, Sunbo True Brother. I learned a lot from. Great gentleman. But then I've also spoken with individuals that are much younger, inexperienced, with an ego the sounds of Mount Everest, perhaps, or the Burj Al Khalifa in Dubai. So it's very difficult to get a message across through their thick heads. But it seems that they say, again, I'll go back to the statement, they would say, just got to move to one of these nature cities, do a lot of mushrooms, and the mother mushroom, mother of Alaska, will make you a shaman. I strongly disagree. I think it's the most stupidest thing to say. This is not how it works in my perspective. Prove me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to get your take on it. I've spoken with a few different shamans, like I said, one very recently, and I definitely disagree with her, but I want to get your take on it. What's the difference between authentic shaman, a fraudulent shaman, or not necessarily a fraudulent, but someone that is completely delusional? What's your take on that?
That's quite a hot potato, because now we are living in a very confused community. Okay, we are living in a very confused time. Many people are confused, even in the holistic industry, in the holistic environment. So much confusion going on. It's a dark forest, you understand? It's a very dark forest. And if you're not self-centered and grounded, you're easily lost, okay? Now, the word shaman for me is an abstract. For me, personally, for how I see it, it's just an abstract, a word that has no significance. Because we're talking about a spiritual person that can be defined as a medicine man or a medicine woman, for an example, okay? Because the medicine is spiritual. It's something that is not tangible with our fingers, with our taste buds, okay? It is perception. It is feeling the presence of something that's invisible, that comes and somehow works on you and elevates you and unblocks you from all the underlying issues of based upon fear, okay? But all I can say that it's a question of presence, because what is the shaman? It's life itself. It's nature. It's the air that we breathe. It's the ground that we touch. It's our body that we feel, you understand? And beyond this, it's the spirit that we sense within ourselves. This is the shaman, okay? It's simply being, it's life experience. It's not a question of I'm going to the I'm I'm 18 or 20. I don't even understand what life is all about yet. I'm not even born yet. I'm not even realized that I'm born on earth yet. Okay? I'm still swimming as a sperm somewhere. And I go to the Himalayas or I go to South America, I have shrooms and I have all these psychedelic experiences. I'm producing DNT in my brain and I'm meeting DNT entities and they seem to be like the masters of the galaxy. And now I feel like the chosen one and the hero of the seven realms. And I'm here to save society from the brink of total impending disaster. Okay, and I'm so glowed, and this further empowers your ego because you haven't worked on yourself, you haven't grounded yourself to keep your ego at bay, and now you're practically the representation of a highly hijacking system. Okay, and 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 this is what it's all about. Now, all I can say that there can be two types of shamans. Okay, one that comes from family background, but that doesn't really make you a shaman because it's a choice, okay? But now let's remove the word shaman and let's say medicine man or medicine woman or a person who simply bees. There are two types. One that comes from family background because, okay, I've got it in my blood, but it doesn't really make us who we are in abstract way as a shaman. It's a choice, it's a lifestyle, okay? And others that are but aren't aware of being, okay? But then, of course, there is, let's say, the third type, which isn't, but that says to be. And this is the mainstream nowadays, okay, unfortunately. The one that says to be, but that isn't, that is only walking and talking with, let's say, the illusion of their ego, okay? These are people who do not take responsibility. And practically, they use the abstract as an excuse not to take responsibility, and they think that they are not. It is a question of presence, okay? Now, all I can say is that I've had more, it's paradox. It's a paradox. If you see the holistic environment and you go out there in the world, from the holistic center, for an example, because the holistic center, candles, incense, wowie, all that. But then you go out in the real world, okay? Now, what does it mean to live in the real world? If you are a spiritual person, it doesn't mean that you have to forcefully go vegan. It doesn't mean that you have to forcefully go pranarian or fruitarian. It doesn't mean that you have to give up drinking a pint of beer with your friend and talking about football, for an example. It simply means living in a way where you have this profound sense of good common sense towards yourself, which means taking the responsibility, that means honoring and respecting yourself on subconscious level, that then takes you into an attitude where you have that perfect sense of personal balance, okay? So it means, okay, you're not denying yourself anything, but at the same time, you have a perfect sense of balance because you have your personal integrity. That then becomes your moral compass. And this means knowing yourself and knowing how to tread through life. And this is connection. This means being a spiritual person to me, okay? It's not om every day and then you go out there, om. It means, okay, you get to know yourself, but you go out there, but be truthful to yourself. Be truthful to yourself and take responsibility. It is life experience. I go to a restaurant, I see a waiter in Dubai. He used to live in the third world and he's in Dubai. He's not having an easy life. But you see, that waiter, when I talk to that waiter, he can say spiritual enlightening things that can be far beyond my words, my personal words. And aha, but it's not a question about the waiter talking to me, but it's a question about the universe dialoguing with itself. And this is shamanism. This is the shaman. It is a state of consciousness and it operates on collective level. Okay? And of course, For me personally, you don't have to be born in a family where someone was a shaman to be a shaman. I believe that we have to destroy this myth because it's creating a sort of, what can I say, selective nature. It creates separation. Ah, he's the chosen one, and all the rest are just there and they have to gloat behind the chosen one. Where through the chosen one, he knows everything and we don't know. We are the ignorant people, okay? There is no chosen one. Collectively, we are all ignorant children facing the infinite. And it's good to be ignorant because this is where the beauty of knowledge comes from, through our ignorance, right? And you know, all I can say is that the shaman can be anywhere because it is a state of consciousness. It's life itself. This is what it's all about. It's not a question that you come from South America and you're a shaman because your uncle was or your father was. It's not a question of taking shrooms, or it's not a question of you're a young guy with a backpack and now you're going to South Africa or South America, or you're going to the outbacks of Australia and you learn to play the didgeridoo and you're already a spiritual healer. Anyone can take a drum and start bashing on the drum and say that they're a shaman. But what about the person behind the drum? It's nothing to do with music or shrooms or whatsoever. It's a question of the presence of a person. It's a question of being.
Fair enough. I do agree with you. I appreciate your statements there. And I'm going to ask you on the word you just said, authenticity. One of the times I watched and I studied some of your material, you made a statement, and I'll quote it in your own words. You stated on Facebook, authenticity is the eternal fire from within. So this was done very recently, and I wish for you to elaborate for the audience here at the Canadian Awareness Podcast and to me as well. Define that for me. What did you mean when you said authenticity is the eternal fire from within?
The spirit, the source, that singularity, that light that nobody can take away from us, okay? This is this eternal fire. It's the enlightenment of the soul that then elevates us on subconscious level to rise the consciousness. It's simply being at the end of the day. It's simply being, and it's related to what I've explained recently, okay? And that eternal fire, that's what it's all about. When you are authentic to yourself, and it takes courage, it takes lots of courage. No hiding, no closing skeletons in your wardrobe. You understand? No keeping the lid on the Pandora's box closed, you understand? Open that lid. Let whatever has to come out, elaborate what's inside your Pandora's box, okay? You see the fire, and it's simply being. You are walking your life, you are talking your life, you are living your life, you are breathing life, but you are like a presence, and it's like a fire, and this is the spirit, the embodiment of spirit. You are spirit living a human experience, and this is the fire.
Fair enough. Thank you for that. I wish to ask you this. So, when it comes to your seminars, you have a lot of them. I've seen different pictures. And what I did notice was one very interesting thing that I've not seen before here, at least in Canada or in United States. And I travel often throughout the world, as you've seen on my social media. But often I spend a lot of time in California, Arizona, Florida. So locally to me, quick flights from Canada. And I've not even seen that, what you do in their seminars. I'm going to explain you. I noticed during your seminars, you have people sit in their individual chairs, and then in front of them are boards, almost of writing boards. And each person, I see the depictions of different, not necessarily art. We're not talking about depicting a giraffe or a mountain, but are you making these individuals elaborate through writing and depicting art, their emotions, their traumas, their pain, their anger, rage, love, hate? Why do you make people sit on chairs in your seminars and draw things? What are they depicting? What are they expressing? Or truly another terminology, what are they channeling through their depiction? What is the purpose of the depiction? Please explain.
Okay, this is very interesting. Okay, this is a recent workshop that I elaborated, that I started to do, and I personally call it the alchemical vision board, the shamanic alchemical vision board. Okay, indeed, it is based upon the concept of sacred geometry, for how the higher forces of the universe operate, okay, through the terms of sacred geometry. The runic symbols, okay, because there are certain runic symbols, Norse runic symbols that have a meaning, okay, that represents the four-dimensional forces of the universe, okay, and plus the power of the mirror, around mirror, okay, that represents, let's say, the continuous cycle of life, but on multi-dimensional level. So what does this mean? Well, this type of vision board helps people to elaborate on subconscious level very rapidly all their underlying issues, of course, solving their underlying issues to prepare themselves to operate on multi-dimensional level and to work on themselves on multi-dimensional level according to the theory and the existence of parallel universes. That's why it's called the alchemical vision board, okay? Because it is based upon, let's say, the law of attraction. And what I consider the missing part to make the law of attraction work, which I like to call the law of polarity as well, the polarity law, okay? Well, what happens is that the person attunes themselves according to what they want to integrate within their actual dimension of existence, which they feel is missing within themselves. But of course, they reflect on it. They undergo a certain ritual to really understand what they really need, okay, to bypass the ego, okay? And then they start to write it down as statements, okay? And then they put these statements on around this alchemical vision board based upon sacred geometry and the power of the mirror. The mirror has very particular properties. It's an antique device that is used by alchemists. And when it is attuned through the knowledge of sacred geometry and of course, through the runic symbols that creates a certain protection to keep the portal pure and clear. And of course, the mirror is attuned even to the vibrational frequency of the person that has elaborated, let's say, missing fragments that they need to integrate within themselves. What happens? The mirror becomes a portal towards a parallel dimension where there is a parallel self of that person, or a doppelganger, okay, which is living a different life, but which has already all these characteristics, let's say, implemented within themselves since their childhood. So what happens? On the other side, the person learns to transfer their consciousness through the third eye, through the mirror, and to bring part of their consciousness into their double self, into their parallel self, and to live this experience, okay? Suddenly they're finding themselves in this parallel dimension, dressed up differently, in another environment. They feel different, they're soaking this energy, they're living the experience, they see a different house, okay? But then at the end of the journey, they retransfer their consciousness or part of their consciousness back into the actual self in this dimension, but they bring in even the information of that parallel self into themselves, which then integrates on DNA level. And this starts to provoke a chain reaction of changes.
Very interesting. I found that actually fascinating that you made people do that, and I think it's very important. I teach a channeling class. It's a trance channeling class. It's 6 weeks long, and I will admit to you, I do the same thing. There is a portion in week 3 where the same thing is done, but not to get off topic. I did notice very interesting 2 seminars you have. One is called Shamanic Way to Harness and Master the Law of Attraction, which kind of you're combining 2 things.
Yeah, that's the vision board.
Right. Very interesting. I went through that,
vision.
and in fact, a person that reshared it, I looked at her Facebook to what she had to say with her girlfriends, and it was very interesting the positive feedback that they all give and then explain to their own friends, which is wonderful. It means people believe in you and you are an authentic teacher, which is a great thing. As a proud human, I say that truly. So you have my respect. And the second course you teach is called Holotropic Shamanic Breathwork for spiritual cleansing. And again, you're combining 2 concepts. Now, with us being in March of 23, we're at the end of March of 23, what do you have going on for the rest of the year? So second, third, and fourth quarter. What are some of your plans for 23? What do you got going on? Where are you going to be? I mean, I'm going to be in Dubai in September and Abu Dhabi, and then off to Istanbul. I'm off to Moscow, but I'm not sure if I'm going to see you. Hopefully, I will, so that we can have wonderful lunch and catch up as humans and hug heart to heart, which I rarely do with individuals. But I wish for you to tell me, what are your plans for 23?
Well, let's say that I'll be in Dubai, of course, until mid-August. So when I go, you're going to be here. But anyway, I'm sure that we will meet each other. You just have to set the intent and be on the same timeline, the same conversion timeline, and it will occur. And for 2023, well, I've got several projects. Especially, I would like to thoroughly expand Transcendental Quantum Reiki because I consider it a very, very important message to spread out there, a very important transformational and elevational, let's say, sometimes I make mistakes in English, but a very highly transformational and it's a method that really elevates the vibrational frequency of our consciousness for this momentum of transition. It facilitates the momentum of transition, and I believe that it is a method that I have that I should work hard on to expand more and more, because it is a growing method. More people are starting to know it, but it needs to be spreaded out because it is a method that has changed the lives of many people. Okay, and of course, once I finish with Dubai, I've got other projects in course, other projects that should come into bay, like retreats. There will be a retreat maybe in Sri Lanka. My first retreat in Sri Lanka. I've talked to a holistic colleague. She's even a student of mine this morning, and we were talking about a holistic retreat in Sri Lanka. And most probably there will be a project to bring my teachings even in India, because I've got a student. She lives in India. She's an Indian. She did Transcendental Quantum Reiki, and she's willing to bring this knowledge to India as well. And this is a big thing, of course. Okay, it's very meaningful. And there is a project to go to Sedona as well, to bring my shamanic courses and my music as well. And so there are a few things going on, let's say, yes.
Sedona is a great place. I have done seminars in Sedona.
And of course,
Magical place.
And of course, Italy as well, because
Magical
Italy is very
place.
important.
When you're in Canada or United States, I'm sure I'll know, and I will probably see you there. To me, it's a flight away. And most of my seminars are in United States anyway. So to me, it'd be an excuse to see this long time friend from some previous incarnations, and I would get to meet one more time in this incarnation. I know that your website is called treeoflifeshamanichealing.com. Where can people find you? I know you have Facebook. I know you have YouTube channel, Tree of Life Shamanic Healing. Your Facebook, I believe, is under your personal name, Gian Carlo. Is this correct? Where can people find you?
When I'm in Italy, I'm based in Tuscany, of course. And I'm working for a small holistic center, which I like a lot, and because I'm very good friends with with the owner. She's authentic, and it's called Nelumbo, Holistic Center Nelumbo in Florence. Okay, and I'm about to collaborate with a very, very dear person as well. She's a very authentic spiritual person. Her name is Antonella, and she's just opened La Dimora Alchemica, she calls it. And it's in a place near Rome called Bracciano. And it is really beautiful. It really looks like the town of the alchemists, with this wooden door. It's an antique building, and it's near the lake, and it's very good for retreats and very good for spiritual activities. So yes, in Italy, I should pay a bit more attention as well, because I'm mainly around. And then there's another center where I go to Italy as well, a very small center, but it's in Siena. And it's called the Holistic Center Siena, the Holistic Center of Siena, Centro Holistico Siena. And it's really in the countryside, in the hills, and it's very quiet and very nice indeed. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yes. I mean, you're going to be traveling all around the world doing your thing. And I have one more question before you, and it's a personal question, and you can share if you wish. Are your parents still alive today?
My mother is alive.
What is one thing that your father taught you in life as you were a young child about anything in life that you would say to this day, your age, you remember that advice flawlessly?
Well, you see, it was something that I should have already understood at the age of 20. And never live according to the expectations of other people, but live according to what you truly expect for yourself, what you want for yourself, okay? Don't compromise the very core of your existence to the expectations of other people, but live up to your own personal expectations. This is what my father taught me further down the track. And I clearly understood this when I left the military because, I wanted him to be proud of me, living up to his expectations. He was like a mountain, okay? Such a charismatic man, you know, and with the Tuscan charm to him, okay? And when he understood that I was out of the military and I was being a spiritual teacher, he came to one of my courses. He was near nearby near the town, about half an hour drive from my town. He knew I was there. I said, John, I'm coming with your mom. Okay. And he came. There were about 25 people in this course, and he came and he was one of the most proactive he was one of the most proactive participants, and he was sharing his own experience, quite unexpected. Okay. And then at the end, he called me aside and said, John, yeah, now I understand what you're doing. And now I can really be proud of you because you've got all the world open in front of you now. So keep going, keep pushing. You're really good in what you're doing. And I understand that you're compromising your whole entire life because you wanted to make me proud, but that wasn't the way. You're doing what you like to do. You're doing things that according to how you truly feel. And this is your vocation. This is who you are. And keep going now. Keep going. Okay, because now you are really my John. Okay. And a short time after he passed away, because that was his mission.
Well, he raised a gentleman, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
You know, I had military in our family, military police particularly, and we had a variety of different law enforcement and government officers within our family. Like when it comes to mom's side and dad's side, both of my grandfathers are passed, both of my grandmothers are passed. My parents are luckily still alive. And one of the things that the grandpa taught me when I was very young was all obviously life type of advice, but it was very strict, very, very strong, strict military type of advice. And at the time, as a child, I honestly thought it was way too strict. It was like, whoa, like, calm down. But I
Yeah.
honestly, I really truthfully tell you, I would trade anything in the world to have one particular grandfather just stand in front of me one more time. Not for me to say, hey, how are you doing? Well, no, no, no. I already know he's incarnated all these things. But I want to just thank him for that true, authentic advice that he gave me that really, really steered me in the right direction in life, even aside from my father's upbringing and his principles he installed in me. So I always wish to ask people's opinions, what's one advice that your mother gave you, your father gave you, and thank you for sharing that. I've been to Tuscany, I'll be honest, in 2004, I think, or five.
Yeah.
I did this like crazy, silly, and don't laugh, but I did this like 35 days in Italy type of, not necessarily backpacking, but like taking a train and buying a pass so you can go on any train unlimited. And I had a pleasure to go to Tuscany. Lovely nature, incredible wine, of course. A very, very lovely place. Is this something that still resides in your heart as a warm little place, or do you have other places within Italy that you would call home?
Well, Tuscany really resides in my heart, to be honest. Okay. You know why? Because I passed the best periods of my childhood there with my cousin. He was like a brother to me. Okay. We practically lived the most beautiful moments of our childhood together, the mischief that we did together. He passed away at the age of 47. heart attack, right? And it's like losing a brother. With these memories there, there's this calling, okay? But, there's also an energy there in Tuscany. It's so mysterious. It's as if that it's remained somehow in some sort of pocket dimension, okay? It reminds me of the Middle Earth as well, the Tolkienian Middle Earth. These hills, those trees, the castles and everything. And it really, really, really embraces you like a fatherly and motherly presence, okay? The important is respecting it, though. You really have to respect it, you really have to keep it clean and ecologically, because when you see the Tuscan countryside and the people as well, they are so connected to their ground, they respect the place, and it's very, 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 very cured indeed, and this is the spirit of shamanism as well, respecting the land, honoring the land, looking after the land. When you see a cigarette on the ground, whoever threw it, it doesn't matter. You just go there you take a piece of paper or a glove, and you just pick it up and throw it in the bin. You understand? This is how we are there. You understand? And the land talks to you as well. So beyond my favorite childhood experiences, the land, it just talks to you. It's so mysterious, and I believe that it has very great potential for being a spiritual place for retreats as well, because there are many beautiful places to do retreats there as well. But it's a land that talks to you. It really talks the history of the earth, the culture of how to be connected to the ground and how to honor it, how to respect it, and it gives something back to you. It gives a profound sensation back to you, and that's when you start to learn to understand how living life is all about. You feel it, and that's the fire. That's the fire.
Wonderful, wonderfully said. Well, my regards to first and foremost your family in Italy, but also to you and your friends and colleagues and your team
Yeah.
here in Dubai. I send you my regards here from Canada, the city of Toronto. Very cold city these days, but hopefully we're going to be getting some sun soon. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, my dear friend. Weird circumstances with this online type of conversations, but I do miss those in person connections, in person conversations, soul to soul connections. Hence, one of my passions is to travel, and hopefully, I will be seeing you soon one of these days in this timeline, in one of these cities, and then we can continue this conversation off the record. What do you say to that?
Yeah, no worries. It's great, simply great. And it's been an honor being here. And I honor your presence. I honor the spirit within you. And indeed, it's been an evening of exchange with two highly honorable beings. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and the beings that I'm connected to appreciate that very lovely and respectful comment of appreciation. I send you the very same respect. Believe me, I don't use the respect word foolishly or loosely, but you certainly deserve it. I wish you all the best on your tours and your adventures in 2023. And thank you for being here. And my regards to everyone in Dubai. I have some viewers in Dubai that I've had a pleasure and honor to connect to. Wonderful, lovely individuals. So my regards to everyone in Dubai and your team. Thank you, Gian Carlo, for being with us. Again, the audience can take a look at your big new website, Tree of Life Shamanic Healing.com, and find out a lot more different information about this wise individual. Thank you and good night. And there we've had Gian Carlo from treeofshamanichealing.com. Thank you, my friend, for being with us this evening here at the Canadian Awareness Podcast. I appreciate your time, your energy, your consciousness, and you sharing us your own true life experiences, your advice, your perspectives, your opinions, and also very, very importantly, you sharing with us the advice that your own father gave you. And family and honor and respect and appreciation of elders, I speak extremely highly always. So thank you for sharing that. For more information on our friend Gian Carlo, please take a look at his website, Tree of Life Shamanichealing.com, a new website. He also has an Instagram, he has Facebook, and a YouTube channel. Dear Canadian Awareness family, thank you very much for your time and you sharing your evening with us here again. And I'll see you again in a couple of months with another episode of Canadian Awareness Podcast. Thank you and good night.